Paranormal in Pennsylvania may discuss topics such as suicide, murder, and other potentially upsetting things. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania,
where we discuss history and hauntings.
Today's story takes us to the Grand Midway Hotel. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erica.
And I'm David Third Wheeling.
And let's get into it. So, today we are starting season 5.
Woo!
And we are discussing the Grand Midway Hotel in Windber, Pennsylvania, where we all spent an overnight investigating.
I am so pumped that we finally get to talk about this.
Yeah.
It has been a while since we've done it. And now that we get to talk about it finally.
And for listeners, we have tried not to talk about this off recording. So we haven't fully debriefed on this, and it's been a month, at least.
Yeah.
So we are excited. This is going to be a little different than normal because you guys know the history and the hauntings, but for the listener's sake, I'll go through the history. And the history is varied, and please jump in if I miss something or say something that you guys think is wrong. So right now it's a hotel, and the hotel has over 30 rooms. Many are horror themed. David and I stayed in the Frankenstein room while Erica stayed in the vampire room. There's also a demon room, a mummy room, a werewolf den, etc. There was tons.
Yeah.
Egyptian room.
That's the mummy room.
Oh, right, the mummy room.
There's Under the Sea, the mermaid one.
Oh, right.
The fantasy gaming one.
Yes, which... Okay, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. Okay, so point is, there's tons of different themes. And the most noteworthy there is the Canopy Room, which we'll discuss significantly in the paranormal claims. The hotel also boasts the largest Ouija board in the world, which is on its roof, and we did not get to go up there. But in the seance room, there's the largest tarot card, and the owner holds world records for both of these. The first floor also has the Titanic bar, an old stage, a movie collection room, and a kitchen, in addition to the seance room. And the second and third floor is where the themed hotel rooms are, with a bathroom at the end of each hall. And the rooms are long and thin, and this layout lends itself to the history of it. So, the building has been many things, but it was a brothel in the early 1900s. And I think that's where it gets the long, thin rooms and the bathroom at the end of the hall. It was also a hotel, a residential home, a bar, and kind of like a boarding house type place for a few years. The current owner bought it sight unseen on eBay for $11,000 and actually lived there for multiple years, even raising his kids there for a bit. He now lives next door, but he offers tours and really has a wealth of information on the property. He's clearly very passionate about it. There are a few historical events that I want to note before we get into the paranormal claims. The first is the death of our beloved Martha. Martha worked there when it was a brothel, and on the 4th of July, 1911, a firework blew up and sent a piece of shrapnel hurling towards the second floor balcony where Martha was watching. It decapitated her. Another interesting thing to note is that there were cadaver dogs in the hotel that led to the discovery of bones behind the original walls in one of the rooms. And I think this was in the monkey room, which means the bones must be from the 1800s. Blair, the current owner, said that there have been claims that there are bodies buried in the basement from previous owners. The final piece of history I want to touch on is an alleged mafia shakedown that happened at this location when it was a bar that resulted in the death of one person. No one ever spoke about it because allegedly, during the shakedown, they warned against speaking out against the mafia. Okay, there's a quick rundown of the history. Anything that I missed?
No. I don't remember if Martha was decapitated or if it just hit her in the neck. But either way, terrible way to go.
I think you hit everything. I think you hit everything big that I remember.
Okay.
Because it's a lot. Honestly, even like me who was there, those are the only things that I remember is what you talked about.
Yeah.
Wasn't it in a restaurant as well at one point after the brothel?
Maybe. Could be. It's been a lot of things. The point is, it's got a varied history.
Sure.
And that a lot of sketchy stuff happened there.
Yeah.
So, paranormal claims.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, I'll break it down by section of the hotel, and you guys can add. So try, if you have stories, to keep it to the section of the room that I'm talking about.
That makes sense.
We'll start with the Titanic bar, which is right when you walk into the hotel, you walk into the bar. And the bar has many, many paranormal claims. There are multiple distinct ghosts said to be there. Martha is said to sometimes be found in the bar, along with a butler, a child, the ghost of cats, and the ghost of coal miners. There's also allegedly women milling around from the time it was a brothel. People report hearing whispers in the bar and seeing black wisps floating through the air. Now, we spent a decent time in this bar trying to get something to respond to us. I think you were doing your EVP session.
Yes, I was not down there.
Okay. But David and I were, and Blair had said that there was some response from the ghosts in the bar to people playing ragtime music. So we did try playing ragtime music both with and without a spirit box. And we didn't seem to have any luck. But David, I know that you had an experience there.
Yeah, I don't know how much of an experience it really was, but as the ragtime music was playing, I would start to smell like a perfume, something very floral. And after the ragtime music stopped, I noticed that it, kind of dissipated. I didn't correlate it with the music until I think we had tried again to do like the ragtime music, and then I noticed that it kind of came back.
Yeah, and I think we were, the whole night, obviously on a paranormal investigation, you want to be debunking stuff as you can. And there were bottles behind the bar, so we were trying to figure out, was it a scent from one of the bottles? Like, was it where you were standing? Is it just a scent kind of leaching out from the wood there? But I don't think we ever came to a conclusion either way. We couldn't definitively debunk it, I should say.
Right, and smells are a piece of evidence or a happening that I'm always really trepidatious with to start.
Was the bar open when it was a brothel?
I don't know if it was I don't think it was the Titanic bar at the time, but I think they had a bar.
Okay, because I was thinking if David was the only man down there and it was a brothel, maybe someone, like a perfume.
But Brandon was down there too.
Oh, never mind then.
But it's still not a bad thought. Like, yeah. Just because there was multiple men down there doesn't mean that they couldn't have been like, ooh, a customer.
Yeah, and I see the insult there that Brandon's just so much better looking than me. They all flock to him instead of me. Like, chopped liver here?
No, it's in fact, Erica's saying the opposite.
Oh, okay.
Because
well, then continue, please.
But the funny thing is they flocked to the married man while his wife was in the room.
Are you trying to say that married men are infidelis?
Never.
Oh, okay.
Married men never used brothels in the history of history.
Correct.
Which is
facts.
Which is crazy because how do they stay open then?
So we didn't catch any EVPs there, and I actually took a rather long video recording of us both during the ragtime music and without the ragtime music, and I didn't see anything other than like orb-like things. Now, I always take those with a grain of salt because they could be distortion of light. Here's where I'm giving it some credit. I put my phone on one of the glass display cases and walked into the bar where David and Brandon were as well. The phone remained stationary, but it does look like there's orbs moving across the screen.
Ooh.
Now, we were moving, so we could have been distorting the light, but the camera itself wasn't moving.
So it could have been distortions of light. It could have also just been particles of dust.
It was dusty. That's real.
So like there's a lot of explanations for these things.
Yeah. So I don't really give that a paranormal claim, especially since we didn't super try to debunk it because I didn't actually review any footage while we were there.
Sure. But man, that's like we're starting out like, ooh, kind of this, kind of that, and immediately we're just like, no, beating it down, like beating it to death. No pun intended.
Yeah. Also, I don't think we gave context. Brandon is a name that we keep saying throughout this episode, and I don't think we've said who Brandon is.
Ah, nice guy.
No.
Yeah. Brandon is the founder of Haunted US, which is an online database of haunted locations. You can search by state, you can search by topic, and he's really cool to work with. He really cares about the history and the hauntings as well, just like us here at PIP. So we were excited to go on investigation with him.
Yeah, he invited us out. And we're like, yeah, absolutely. Because he also came through Pittsburgh and did a bunch of haunted locations here.
Yes. So if you are interested in finding paranormal locations near you, check out hauntedus.com and follow them on Instagram because he is also a photographer. He used to be a wedding photographer and he takes very cool photos.
Yeah.
I feel very inferior when I'm like, oh, Brandon, I also took some photos at Grand Midway if you need any.
And I took them from my iPhone. Although granted, the iPhone cameras are quite good. Now they just still don't really compare up to, like a professional photographer's camera.
Or a
Right.
trained photographer. I mean, I think he said he's self-taught, but he is very good at photography and I am very average.
Sure, I wasn't even like using skill levels, but if you want to bring that in too,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
had not a chance.
So if you want to see photos of haunted locations that are high quality and read the history and hauntings, Haunted US, great resource. Go check it out. So moving from the bar, we're going to go to the Canopy Room. And we spent a lot of time here too because
Yeah.
it's said to be the most haunted room in the hotel. And allegedly, if people spend the night there, 8 to 9 out of 10 don't make it through the night because they're so spooked. There's said to be the ghost of an angry woman that was strangled and buried in the basement. There's also a doll in the room on a rocking chair that's said to be haunted and a nun statue that apparently talks to you in your dreams. The doll in the rocking chair is known to rock the chair on her own. There's a big mirror in the room and people report seeing faces in the mirror when they play Ouija, and then it spells get out and then keeps going to game over. So whatever the spirit is there, it doesn't seem like it wants to play. And we did both group and individual EVP sessions here. I'll summarize Brandon's individual session and then we can talk about what we experienced. So Brandon did have some luck with EMF activity here. He said that he asked the doll to blink the light once, twice, and then 3 times in sequence, and that it did, but we didn't have much luck following that. Additionally, while he was doing his individual session, he heard footsteps above him and the 3rd floor REM pod went off. We did note that if the REM pods were right above and below each other, so stacked, 1 story apart, they would both go off, but we could not replicate this because the 3 of us were down on the 1st floor in the seance room at this time. And in addition to the REM pod going off, he did hear footsteps.
Right. Also, additionally, with just to give more credit or more context, really, the REM pod that we had with us in the seance room was more frontwards in the house
Yeah.
than the REM pod that was on the 3rd floor. So when we were able to get them both to go off, they were, as Sarah mentioned, quite literally stacked on top of one another, just a floor separating them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But once we started moving them away from each other, we started finding that there's a distance. So certainly the REM pod going off in the seance room does not affect on the 3rd floor.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, because it was 2 floors away, too.
Mm-hmm. Anything else about the Canopy Room?
Yeah, you're missing a huge part of the Canopy Room. Talk to me about that closet.
What about the closet?
What was in the
There was
closet?
a doll there, right? was it Chucky?
It was the Exorcist
Yeah, it was-
statue, but it's not haunted.
It's not haunted. It's still kind of creepy that it's like in the closet staring at you.
I will say I did move my chair so it wasn't directly behind me during the EVP sessions.
Yeah, I was up against the wall.
But we were told explicitly multiple times that is not haunted. There's never been any evidence recorded for anything associated with that statue.
Yeah.
But still, is creepy.
I don't think I had too much activity in there either. When I was doing my individual one, I definitely felt weird.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like life-size dolls kind of freak me out a little bit, so it could have been that. I didn't really have any movement. I did have a few EMF flashes, but they were random. In fact, when I was in there, I didn't even realize that the blue light was EMF until Brandon told me after. So it was very random, and so I don't necessarily think it was anything. So it was a weird vibe for sure, but I didn't really have any activity.
And that's where I think the power of suggestion in places like this is really noteworthy. This is a place where a horror enthusiast has outfitted it. So there's things like the Exorcist statue, and, you know, at the end of the hall, right by the bathroom on the floor we all stayed on, there was it, or Pennywise, rather. And so the power of suggestion, you can really get into your head, especially when you're alone, especially when it's dark, you're in an old building. So I think it's important to acknowledge that, but I do think there was an overall creepy feeling to the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely a creepy feeling to the building. Oh, I think it's also worth noting now, when we talk about these rooms, Sarah did describe them as, you know, thin, long rooms, which is true, but a lot of the walls have been broken down, and so like multiple rooms have been combined to give you a much larger room space. So a lot of them are more like suite-esque than just a shoebox.
Yeah, in this case, the Canopy Room is just one.
Yes.
The Canopy Room being the exception to this.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on then to general third floor hauntings. So Martha, as I mentioned, is known to haunt this location, specifically the third floor. And she's even been captured in a photo that they have blown up on the wall there. And in the photo, she's, quote, having tea with someone at the window. So we tried to interact with her. We spread out across the third floor. I sat at the table and I even held a teacup for part of it. And you guys were kind of staggered throughout the rest of the floor. And we tried to do an EVP and REM pod session here. We didn't really get any activity. I didn't experience anything when I was sitting there, but I wanted to check with you guys. Anything that you guys experienced at that point of the night?
Ooh, when you say at that point of the night, I have a hard time like putting myself where I was at when you were sitting there.
You were at the far end of the hall. I remember because I watched the video of the session. Brandon was off to this side. Erica was by the entrance to the vampire suite, and you were down further.
Gotcha. Like closer to like the demon room bathroom area?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can't report anything from my side at that point.
No, me either. Not on the third floor.
Okay. Next up, I'm going to talk about the two places that we slept, and then we can fill in anything else that you guys might have. So David and I stayed in the Frankenstein Suite, and I didn't have any activity that I noted. We didn't do an EVP session in that room, and the paranormal claim here is that a ghost slams doors, but we didn't really experience that. David did have one questionable occurrence, though.
I don't even know if it's even questionable. I kind of woke up at one point, half asleep, half awake, and I could have sworn that there was like a woman in the room with us, but immediately it was just like, no, I went to sleep, like back to sleep. But it was like a woman in like not like a white dress, but like a frilly dress with substantial shoes, and I just like played it off, say, all right, back to sleep. It's not a thing.
Which is crazy to me, because if that had been me, you would have been awake.
Right. And so sleep, dream state, very questionable, extremely questionable, actually.
Well, but it sounds like she's wearing period-specific clothing to when it was a brothel. Like, she's wearing 1910 style clothes with the boots with, like, the many buttons on them. Like, that's the shoes that they wore back then.
Yeah. Maybe she followed you up from the bar.
She's like, hey, buddy, I see you're in a bed now. I see that your wife is asleep. Can I interest you?
Can I solicit you for nefarious activities?
Or maybe we have her all wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe she was really friendly and she's like, hey, you're here to try to understand me. Or maybe it was Martha, because the whole night I was like, Martha, please, girl, I want to talk to you. Maybe she's like, I'm not trying to talk to your wife, but I will talk to you.
Or it could have been, just a worker checking, actually not on me or anything, but you. She assumed that you were a worker too. You'd been in there for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
These all could be possible. And again, I feel like in this episode we're very skeptical, but I think because we did the full overnight investigation. That's why we're so skeptical. We really want to make sure we're not telling any untruths. But I mean, it depends on your perspective. I guess if you're listening, let us know in the comments. What do you think? Do you think that this was a paranormal occurrence? I think it was.
I agree.
Maybe.
I think you're way too chill about it.
Also agreed.
Because I can't definitively say if it was or not. That's the thing. Is I was like half asleep, half awake. I can't definitively say. I can't. There's no video evidence. There's no recording.
Right.
There's nothing to back this claim.
Yeah.
Other than my not even first-hand account, really.
Well, speaking of backing up claims, let's move to the Vampire Suite.
Jesus Lord.
And the Vampire Suite was where Erica bravely decided she would spend the night.
Yeah, she was like, I'm no fraidy cat.
And so the Vampire Suite, like David said, some of the rooms were knocked down. So you walked in, there was a sitting area. Then there was a room with a bed. And then you like went through the closet into this coffin room.
Yeah.
Creepy.
No, I thought that was so cool.
It was cool for sure in the daylight. And then as the night wore on, I was like, oh dear.
Yes.
Yeah. And so Erica bravely said, I'm a big, very brave woman.
Yeah.
And I am going to go sit in the crypt alone in the dark and nobody else come near me.
Well,
it sort of happened like that.
that was for the group EVP session. So
Yeah.
Erica was in the room with the caskets/coffins. Brandon was seated on the bed, and David and I were in the first sitting room area, kind of spread out. And there are claims that photos catch something in the coffin room. And I think our most concrete evidence, the whole night happened here.
Yeah.
So during the EVP session, I said something like, do you want the men to leave? And Brandon thought that he heard something behind him. It could have been just the curtain pull moving in the wind. But because we thought it could have been something, we couldn't immediately debunk it. We decided, why not try it, right? If this was a brothel, it's very possible that the male presence could be making the spirits feel a little unsure. So we were like, okay, Erica and I will do it. They left. Erica and I went through the rest of the EVP session, and then I asked, do you also want us to leave you alone? And we caught an EVP that said yes. And we did not know that until until Brandon reviewed the recording much later on. And Erica didn't know that before she slept in the room.
No, or I definitely would not have slept in that room. For more reasons than one. Because that's terrifying, but also I would have wanted to be respectful. I would have picked up my things and very nicely left the area.
Would you like us to leave you alone as well? But how was the night?
So, here's the thing. I made it through the night. I didn't, feel like the need to go into a different room. Mm-hmm. The thing is, though, so when Brandon asked that, I just said, yeah, I made it through the night. Here's the thing. I did not sleep for more than 5 minutes, and I ended up leaving, 2 hours before I said I was going to. I think I left at, 5:30.
Really?
Yes. And I don't, so as I was falling asleep, I was listening to Zach's stream. Mm-hmm. Every time I would get, close to falling asleep, I would wake back up. Immediately. So I was not sleeping for more than a couple minutes at a time. I then was like, this is probably just in my head. So when Z stopped streaming, I decided to listen to music. And so I had lo-fi music playing. Same thing. I definitely could have just been, again, my own anxiety. Mm-hmm. But there was a point where I was like, just go to sleep. It wasn't even I was scared anymore. I was just irritated and literally could not get to sleep. And then it was probably around 5:30, and I was and I said I was going to leave at 7, I think. Mm-hmm. And at 5:30, I was like, this is pointless. I'm just going to go get gas and go home.
Oh my gosh.
So I left, which at the time, I mean, again, it could have just been me. I know I'm being skeptical, very skeptical, because it was more of just a feeling. There was no concrete thing there. But yeah, after I thought about it more after we heard the EVP, I was like, oh, I guess I did end up getting kind of chased out of the room.
That's real.
And also hearing that you left at 5:30 debunks one of the things I forgot to mention is I also kind of woke up at one point because I swore I heard footsteps. I bet that was you.
Probably, yeah. Probably.
Oh, yeah. I will say all night I was Sarah, if you wake up and someone's in the room, don't freak out. It could be Erica. Because I was like, if she gets, scared, she could come into our room.
Yeah.
Turns out it wasn't actually a ghost I saw or a spirit. It was Erica just watching us sleep.
In her 1911 costume.
You guys didn't know. I just pulled one of the costumes from the closet and tried it on and figured, you know what? Let's go wreak some havoc.
Let's get revenge on David.
Yeah. That would be terrifying.
Yeah, just to be clear, I did not do that. Just so we're all clear.
Yeah. But I think
proof?
that is interesting too, because I think, of course, there's the power of suggestion, there's getting inside your head, but there's also the possibility of the spirits projecting a certain aura of making you uncomfortable. They don't want you there.
Yeah.
They don't want you to feel restful. They don't want you to stay. They want you to leave. So again, it's not concrete, but I wouldn't say it's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like I said, thinking back on it, I was like, yeah, I really did just not fall asleep. And it was just a couple
right
little sleep sessions.
And so it's important to say, we as Paranormal in Pennsylvania will not say, that's definitive evidence.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's still something. It's for, the viewer to also decide. We'll present it as a very skeptical piece of potential evidence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the moral to the whole investigation. Other than the EVP that we caught, I think the bigger question to us was, is this place actually haunted? We just didn't have much concrete evidence the whole time that we were there. The EVP definitely made me feel better. But everything else, it was well, it could be, it couldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I said this about the doll in the Canopy Room. It's very easy in that dark of a setting to have your eyes trick you and into thinking a rocking chair is moving.
Yes.
I don't, of course, I'm not saying that all rocking chair reports are wrong, because I think there are some that are intense and you're like, okay, it's clearly moving. But I think slight movement from a rocking chair could legitimately just be your mind.
Well, and that's why I think it's important to note that we did put the motion sensors at the base of the rocking chair so that if it did move, we would have caught it and it wasn't triggered.
Yeah. And so I talked to Brandon about it as well, because during my session in that room, the motion sensor went off twice, but I couldn't tell if that was my slight movement. And because I did acknowledge, I did move slightly. And then so I sat there and tried to do it again. And I couldn't really get it to go off, but there's no way for me to know if I set that off or not.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or that something else set that off. The more likely answer is I set it off somehow.
Yeah.
Because it might have been more sensitive at that moment. Or I triggered it somehow.
Yeah. So those are the main experiences and claims. Is there anything else that you guys experienced while we were there that I missed?
No. Or I don't think so.
I will say I felt very uneasy in the bathroom, and I'm actually shocked because you dropped off face wash for me.
I did.
And I didn't even realize that you were there. And I didn't feel uneasy at that point, but it was anytime I was in that bathroom, I just felt rushed and I shouldn't be in there. And I wonder if that's residual energy maybe from when it was a brothel, if they all had to share. If it's come on, girl, get out of there.
Yeah.
You're not the only one that has to clean up or wash up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I will say I tried to get your attention, but you had the electric toothbrush going, and I was like, if I stay here, you're going to get real freaked out if you turn around and find me. I was like, I think you'd much rather just see some random face wash sitting there than me,
100%.
Right behind you.
100% I would have lost it.
No. So I left.
Yeah. And I will say, as much as we joke on almost every single episode about messing with each other at investigations, we don't. We take it very seriously.
Yes.
Because one, it would be kind of cruel and uncomfortable if we were constantly trying to scare each other.
Yeah.
And two, we want to make sure that everything that we experience is 100% authentic to the location.
Right.
My only other thing was, so on the second floor hallway, there was a deer wall. It was it had to be 30 to 40 deer heads, put up on this wall. First of all, one of them had arms, which was just an experience. I've never seen a deer head with arms before. Do you remember it, David?
No, are you saying like the legs of the deer? Or like it was a deer head and human arms, gorilla arms?
No, it was like deer legs. I guess legs is the proper, but it was sticking. I don't know.
Yeah.
It looked like arms, okay? But yeah, it was deer legs. That was the first time I've ever seen that. But I felt something on my back at one point, and I said to Brandon, I think it might just be my shirt, because I feel like I felt it once or twice, but like in the same spot. So it could just be like my shirt. But then Brandon and I switched places, and he also felt something like on his shoulder.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
This is new.
Yeah. So again, not concrete, but we both kind of felt something standing in the same spot. Like almost like a spider web.
Yeah. And so that's what I think is interesting about this place. I wonder how much of it is residual energy versus full-fledged haunts.
Yeah.
And spirits that still live there. Like, is Martha still there, or is the idea of Martha still there?
Right. That's a good question. Yeah.
Because I think when you have a location that it's perpetuated, that it's haunted, okay, yes, some of that energy might persist, but it might not be that there's actively still ghosts there. Either way, it was an interesting experience. And now for the question, would you go back to this place of paranormal phenomena?
Yes, I would. But before we even jump into this question, do we want to talk about how we did the investigation and like our general methodologies on what we did in each room?
Okay, go ahead.
What we did is we would sit down and generally have a couple moments of silence. The purpose of this was to hear, just normal regular sounds, like, and we would call out if we heard something. Like David heard a car, and then ask like the general, okay, so at the end, what was everybody hearing? Crickets, maybe like sounds of something like wind, things like that we might be able to then keep in mind for when we start asking questions for the EVP.
Yeah, and then we would ask questions for EVP and then maybe do individual sessions as well. But it's noteworthy that's not the whole technique that we used for the whole investigation. That's just the technique for EVP sessions.
Yeah, very good point.
That's why I just wanted to be clear with what you were getting at, because we did also use REM pods, we did also use EMF, we did also use temperature gauges, we did also use spirit box, we did also use recording devices, the Mel meter, etc. So that's just the technique for the EVP sessions.
You're right, and we did try moving the REM pods around in different locations, as we mentioned. That's when we discovered that they could set each other off as well. And then we generally had a recorder on every level so that we could correlate sounds to make sure that, I heard footsteps. Well, Erica's stopping around on the third floor.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really did like that Brandon invited us, because he has so much knowledge on this stuff. I feel like it was helpful for the three of us to do it with someone who had a ton of experience the first time that we ever did an investigation together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had done like the public investigations a few times, but never on my own. And I think in public investigations previously, I just kind of like followed whatever they said. Right. And didn't really, it's a lot different when you're there on your own and it's like, okay, where do we start? So I agree. It was great. And I mean, I think that's what makes him a great investigator. He is very methodical about how he does stuff. He really cares about getting hard evidence. And that's why part of why we're so skeptical too, right? Because we were talking about this stuff with him and it's like, well, you don't want to be like, oh my God, yeah, it's whatever, they're definitely ghosts, because it's our job as paranormal investigators to debunk these things.
Right.
Because we owe it to ourselves, the community, and whatever spirits might actually be out there for credibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say you would go back. I would not go back. I just think that whatever is there, it doesn't want to talk, if there's anything there other than residual energy. So I just think it wouldn't be worth it to go back.
I think doing more in the bar area would be interesting. I think that'd be an area that I'd be interested in redoing.
What about you, Erica?
No, I don't think I would go back either. I think, as you said, we did a lot of investigation, and I think thoroughly in most of the rooms. And I think it's a really nice place to go to for the first time. But the vibes that I felt there, even if they weren't real, were not something that I would want to replicate again, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. I also felt pretty unwelcome.
Bad vibes.
Yeah. Not very demure. Is that what the kids are saying?
I don't even know. I don't even get it. Anything.
Oh, is this where you say, like, back in my day, we went 4 miles to
Back in my day, we had home phones and dial-up.
And I had a PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
So that is our investigation at the Grand Midway Hotel in Windber, Pennsylvania. As I said, and everybody said, we did it with our friend Brandon of hauntedus.com, so definitely give them a follow, give their website a look. There's tons of cool information and photos there. Even if you just like photos, honestly, it's worth it. Covering history and hauntings, and thank you for tuning in for this week's episode. Welcome to Season 5 of Paranormal in Pennsylvania. Tune in next Thursday to see what history and hauntings we discuss next. Stay spooky, my friends.
Spooky Season 5.